If you've started to create your content, you've probably gone charging off into the sunset, prepared to give your audience the message that it is that you want to deliver. And fantastic, it's exciting. We are producing content on a regular basis, we're motivated. But what happens when life inevitably gets in the way, when you're just not able to hit record, you're not able to get in front of a microphone or even write your articles, newsletters, or blog posts for people to enjoy? Unfortunately, as much as we want to have that consistency, sometimes things just happen and get in the way. So what do we do to avoid that? In this video, I'm going to share with you some tips, tricks, and ideas that will hopefully help you avoid any of these issues. And specifically, I'm going to talk about the topic of Podfade. And if you're a podcaster, you've heard of that, you might be thinking, what on earth is it? Or if you're not a podcaster, why not? But what on earth does that actually mean? Now, Podfade is a term that's often used when podcasts have been publishing on a frequent basis, but the podcasters, me or you, have stopped hitting record, have stopped publishing, and effectively lost their audience because they realise that there's no more episodes coming through. Now, that's not to say that if you have had to have a prolonged break that you can't pick up the microphone and get back into the zone and start telling people that you're releasing episodes again. Far from it. But to avoid the whole scenario in its entirety, then I've got a recommendation that might help you. And it's something that I shared with both Ollie and Ben from the Goin In Deep podcast, the podcast that I helped to produce and manage. And that being that life is going to get in the way, so let's plan ahead a little bit and get more recordings than we need captured and ready, prepared and queued up and ready to release at that later date. Now, I would call this batch production. So similar if you're going to be thinking about how people produce furniture. At one time, you might get a beautiful piece of furniture that's created by a single craftsman. They do everything all at once. Or you might get a cheaper piece of furniture, dare I say IKEA, but no offence IKEA. They've probably got more of a production line, more of a factory that is just doing those jobs. So batch production, hopefully I explained that right, will allow you to get in the zone and record more episodes when you're able to. Not only that, but if you have got a bit of a setup like a video such as this one or a podcast itself, and you're using video to capture that podcast and repurpose your episodes, which you should be doing, then it will take less setup time and less actually you going through the motions of getting to that phase where you're ready to hit record. Now, if we have batch produced, then we can schedule our podcasts and we can have them being released at that frequency that we've decided to tell our audience and to get them into the mood of coming back and consuming more of what it is that we've got to say. But if you know that it's not going to be realistic, there's going to be moments in the year where you're just not going to be able to hit record for whatever reason. You're not able to produce an episode because of workload, family commitments, the type of content it is that you're creating. Perhaps you're creating a seasonality show. I hope that makes some kind of sense. But you get the idea. If you're not able to capture some of your recordings at moments of the year, then you could opt to release your podcast in seasons instead of episodic. Now, where I'm talking about episodic, this is where most people refer to podcasts and have the idea that they're going to be released the next episode at a frequency of the podcast choosing. There are some that are monthly and bi-weekly, but I think by far the most popular is weekly or even daily podcasts, which can happen or multiple times of release during that week. And on the flip side of that, of course, we have seasons where we decide to have a set amount of podcasts, whether that's a number of shows, 10 shows, 20 shows, whatever that happens to be, or even a time frame where you just call time to say, you know what, guys, it is the end of series 1. We'll be back very shortly and we can't wait to bring you season 2 in the not too distant future. just as a bit of an idea of what you could say there. Free of charge. If you like that, please do give me a thumbs up. I just went into podcasting waffle mode there. But if you have got that scenario when you're not going to have an episode released in your episodic sequence, or you're going to have a gap in between the seasons of your show, why not think about repurposing some of the content that you've already recorded? Now, it might be that you want to be super clever and hold parts of your conversation back from being released. So part of the edit for your podcast, you might chop out certain chunks that are really valuable that you could share at a later date. Or like what we've done in the Goin In Deep podcast, to keep that continuity and all the hard work and the progress that we've been making with building up our loyal audience, what we've done is we've just gone back and selected some of our favourite parts or some of the more meaningful parts of episodes to focus in and to hone in on those. So effectively, we go and we cut out a shorter section of a podcast episode that's previously been shared, something of value. We will perhaps add a voiceover at the start or some narrative, some introduction, which I've been helping out on the show itself. Just recording a bit of why we think this particular section is valuable. Not only will it help to highlight that particular part of the episode that may have got lost if it's a longer recording, because I know our podcasts at least are lengthy. They can take up to 2-3 hours an episode. So it's a great way of us just highlighting that information and making sure that it's heard. But once we've got that section, we then package it up as a podcast episode, but instead of releasing it as an episode or identifying it as part of series 1 or series 2, we literally just entitle it as a bonus episode. So when you're in your podcast media host of choice, literally select the bonus option, and then that will be appearing as a bonus podcast for your audience to enjoy. We've had some good success with keeping our audience interested whilst we're preparing season 2. And if anyone from the Goin In Deep podcast listenership is watching, then you'll be pleased to hear that we're going to be releasing that very shortly. So I hope those tips have helped you understand a little bit more about what Podfade is to start with, but then some ideas on how you can keep consistent when you're not able to actually get to the microphone itself. Now, I've said that you can record an intro and an outro, which is absolutely right, but you don't even have to go to those lengths. You could just take a really important section and just repurpose that clip. If it has been of value, I'd love for you to subscribe to join me in sharing some ideas about content creation. Equally, a like and any comments you've got or questions that you might have, please do drop them below. Otherwise, perhaps one of these videos might be one that you're interested in watching next.